Americans eligible for the vaccine who have not been vaccinated for a whole variety of reasons, probably as many reasons as there are people. And I want to keep making this clear because I think it's tempting to sort of reduce this a little bit to a simple political story that millions of these folks are not, it's not because they love Donald Trump or Fox News or have conservative politics. It's complicated. That said, it's also clear and undeniable that a big part of vaccine resistance in the aggregate in the U.S. is being driven by opposition of conservative media. You take a look at this chart. Each of these lines represents a state's vaccination rate over time, and it's, pretty plain to see. Those blue lines on the top, those are the blue states that are all getting vaccinated at a much higher rate than any state that voted for Trump, although you also see those ones flattening as well. It is undeniably the case that one of the main issues we are facing in combating this disease 18 months into this is a kind of radicalization of the American right against vaccination. But for all the back and forth between the White House and Facebook this week about how much responsibility that social network bears for America's failure to have higher vaccination rates, there's one other very obvious source of vaccine disinformation night in, night out that is not Facebook.
The big problem here is what the president is not telling young people.
Maybe, Dan, we got breaking news. It turns out the vaccines might not work if 5 on the same plane have the COVID-19 virus.
This is a pandemic of the unvaccinated is simply untrue. That's a lie. The advice they're giving you isn't designed to help. It's designed to make you comply. And you shouldn't comply mindlessly.
Every one of those sound bites was from Fox News last night, and to the extent that there are truth claims there, they're not true. I mean, there are people that are unvaccinated, that are vaccinated, who have gotten breakthrough cases. We know that, but by and large, it is a pandemic of the unvaccinated. In fact, Media Matters found Fox undermined vaccination efforts in nearly 60% of all its vaccination segments in a 2-week period. And it is almost always done in the most cowardly way imaginable. You saw it in those clips there, right? It's not don't get vaccinated. It's we're just asking questions. We don't take a position. Don't take medical advice from people on TV. They're trying to get you to comply, so you should not comply. It's like anti-pro-vax. And all while doing everything possible to stoke fears about the vaccine, as they have stoked fears and misgivings about, let's be clear, every single other intervention against COVID that could save lives, whether that was social distancing, whether that was closing bars and nightclubs, whether that was masking indoors, because fundamentally the dominant perspective of that network from the beginning of the pandemic has been, who cares if all those people die? They're old, poor, or sick anyway. Now, one person who does care about old people dying is News Corp boss Rupert Murdoch, who himself is old and who was one of the first people in the world to get the vaccine, while his network is making tons of money and rating perfectly well, pumping the kind of nonsense we just played. But that won't affect the actual policymakers at Fox, who are forced into the same conundrum that basically everyone is, which is, how do institutions from school systems to offices deal with keeping their population safe in a world where there's a Delta variant that is clearly very transmissible, and also a safe, free, and effective vaccine available? What to do? Well, one answer is just make sure people are vaccinated. That's precisely the kind of policy that Fox News has been rallying against, the idea of a heavy hand from above telling you what to do, vaccine passports. So you might be surprised to learn it's exactly what the bosses at Fox are doing with their own building, because they do understand the dangers of the situation, the nihilistic cynicism and preening idiocy of its hosts notwithstanding. The Intercept's Ryan Grimm reports Fox News workers have their own corporate vaccine passport, sharing guidance from the company stating fully vaccinated individuals who have entered their vaccination information will be provided a Fox Clear Pass. That sounds like a good idea. That's a smart idea. While unvaccinated employees must continue to comply with all of Fox's COVID-19 prevention guidelines. That also makes sense. Different categories. Let's distinguish between folks who are vaccinated and not vaccinated, and what they can do and what they have to do, what hoops they have to jump through. Sensible. Sensible. This solution suggests that strongly encouraging vaccinations might be, an interesting path forward for a lot of other places. Maybe we should book the head of Fox HR here, talk about it. There's been a lot of back and forth about what to do about people who have not gotten vaccinated, but if you were looking for one of the most obvious places to start, it would be nice for the most influential mouthpiece for the entire conservative movement in the U.S. to stop actively undermining the health of its viewers. Now, Renee DiResta is a technical research manager for the Stanford Internet Observatory, and her job there is to investigate the spread of malign narratives across social networks. The other day, she had a great Twitter thread explaining the evolution of the anti-vax narrative, its biggest spreaders at the moment, and she joins me